You check your phone before the meeting, and there are 3 unread messages. One from your manager asking if you can cover someone's shift. One from a friend asking if you're still coming to the thing you already said yes to a week ago. One from someone you barely know, asking for a favor they could easily handle themselves. You answer all 3 immediately. You say yes to the shift even though you had plans. You confirm again even though you already committed. You help the person who wouldn't do the same for you. And in that moment, without realizing it, you just told the world exactly how little your time is worth. You handed over your authority. You made yourself available, predictable, and replaceable. And the worst part is, you thought you were being a good person. At work, you stay late without being asked because you think it shows dedication. Your manager notices but doesn't thank you. They expect it now. At home, you're always the one who texts first, who makes the plans, who checks in. The other person responds when they feel like it. You tell yourself it's because you care more, but caring more is just another way of saying you're willing to accept less. With your friends, you're always free, always down, always flexible. And slowly, without anyone saying it out loud, you become the backup plan. The person they call when the better option falls through. You're not valued, you're convenient. Machiavelli understood something that most people refuse to accept. Predictability is a form of weakness. When people know precisely how you'll respond, they stop respecting your position. They stop considering your needs. They stop seeing you as someone with leverage. You become a tool, a resource, a known quantity, and known quantities don't command attention. They don't inspire caution. They don't hold power. You were trained to be reliable, agreeable, and available. You were taught that consistency equals integrity, that being the same person in every situation is a virtue. But what you weren't told is that this makes you easy to manage, easy to predict, easy to replace. This script will show you 7 psychological shifts that separate those who are controlled from those who control. These aren't techniques, these aren't tricks. This is how power actually moves between people. Most of you will leave before this ends because you'll feel uncomfortable. You'll tell yourself this is manipulation or that it's too cold. That reaction is exactly why you're in the position you're in. The people who stay are those ready to see how the game actually works. If you ignore what's coming, you'll keep handing your power to people who don't even realize they're taking it. If you stay, you'll start to see every interaction differently. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Put your phone face down and listen. If this hits you, write "I am the strategist" once in the comments to mark the day your mindset changed. You're in a conversation and someone says something wrong. The opinion is not bad. Factually incorrect. You feel the urge to correct them. You do. You explain calmly, clearly, and logically. They don't thank you. They get defensive. The group goes quiet. You just lost status, and you don't even know why. Here's what happened. You accepted their frame. They made a statement. You responded to it. In that moment, they became the person setting the terms, and you became the person reacting to those terms. Reaction is always lower status than action. When you correct someone, you're telling them their words mattered enough to pull a response out of you. You're showing that you care more about being right than about being respected. And people don't respect someone who needs to be right. They respect someone who doesn't need to prove anything. Machiavelli knew that facts do not give authority. A frame provides it. The person who holds the frame controls the interaction. When you step into someone else's frame to correct it, you've already lost. You've already accepted their reality as the battlefield. The power move is not responding at all. Silence in that moment does more than any correction ever could. It signals that their error isn't even worth your attention. It positions you above the conversation, not inside it. This applies everywhere. At work, when someone challenges your idea in a meeting, your instinct is to defend it, to explain, to justify. But the moment you start explaining, you've handed them the power. You're now trying to win their approval. The person who doesn't defend, who lets the challenge sit in the air, forces the other person to fill the silence. And in filling it, they expose themselves. They reveal their insecurity. They need to be seen. You reveal nothing. In relationships, when someone accuses you of something you didn't do, your instinct is to prove your innocence, to explain where you were, to show evidence. But the explanation is submission. It's you accepting their right to question you. It's you stepping into their courtroom and defending yourself. The person with power doesn't defend. They don't explain. They withdraw attention. They let the accusation hang there with no response. That silence creates fear, because the accuser realizes they just gambled their status and got nothing back. People are terrified of silence because silence forces them to sit with their own discomfort. When you fill the silence, you relieve them. You take the discomfort off their shoulders and put it on yours. When you let it sit, they carry it. They start questioning themselves. They start wondering if they made a mistake. You didn't argue. You didn't defend. You just refused to participate. And refusal is the highest form of power. You're at a party or a gathering, and someone asks you what you've been up to. You tell them everything, your projects, your plans, your struggles, your thoughts. You think you're being open, authentic, real. But what you're actually doing is handing them information they didn't earn. You're making yourself known, and once you're fully known, you're no longer interesting. Machiavelli understood that mystery is a form of control. When people don't fully understand you, they fill in the gaps with projections. They imagine you're more capable, more connected, more dangerous than you might be, and those projections work in your favor. The moment you explain yourself fully, you collapse that projection. You become exactly what you said you are, nothing more. And people stop wondering about you. They stop trying to figure you out. They move on. This is why people who talk less are perceived as more powerful. It's not because they're hiding something, it's because they're not giving anything away for free. Every piece of information you offer is a piece of leverage you lose. When someone asks what you're working on and you say a few things instead of listing them all, you keep the frame. You stay in control of what's known. When they ask where you've been and you say around instead of explaining your schedule, you maintain scarcity. They don't get to map you. They don't get to predict you. And what they can't predict, they respect. People think transparency builds trust. It doesn't. Transparency builds familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. Trust is built through consistency and action, not through oversharing and conversation. When you tell people everything, you're not building a connection. You're giving them the tools to manage you, to anticipate you, to dismiss you. At work, the person who's always available is never taken seriously. The person who's always in the office, always responding to emails immediately, always saying yes, becomes invisible. They're part of the furniture. Reliable, sure. Reliable, sure. Valued, no. The selective person who doesn't answer every message right away, who sometimes says no without explaining why, that's the person people think twice about. That's the person they prepare for. That's the person who holds leverage. You think being available makes you valuable. It makes you expect. Scarcity makes you valuable. Uncertainty makes you valuable. When people know precisely what they'll get from you, they stop appreciating it. They start assuming it. And assumptions don't come with gratitude. They come with entitlement. Someone insults you in front of others. Not directly, it's veiled. A joke. A comment that could go either way. Everyone's watching to see how you'll react. You laugh it off. You play along. You make a self-deprecating joke back. You think you're being cool, easygoing, secure. But what you actually did was accept the insult. You agreed to the frame that you're the kind of person who can be talked to that way. And now everyone in that room knows it. Machiavelli would say you just gave permission not just to that person, but to everyone watching. You showed them that your boundaries are soft, that you'll tolerate disrespect if it's wrapped in humor, that you value being liked more than being respected, and from that moment on you'll be tested, not because people are cruel, but because people instinctively probe for weakness. They want to know where the line is. If you don't draw it, they'll assume there isn't one. The correct response to a veiled insult is not a comeback, it's withdrawal. You don't laugh, you don't engage, you look at them for a moment. Let the silence hang, and then turn your attention somewhere else. That pause does everything. It signals that what they just said didn't land as humor. It landed as a miscalculation, and now they're sitting in it. The room feels it too. Everyone saw the attempt. Everyone saw your refusal to accept it, and in that refusal, you raised the cost of disrespect. The next time someone thinks about testing you, they'll remember that moment. They'll remember that you don't play. You don't explain. You don't defend. You remove your attention, and attention is the only currency that matters. This applies to all boundary violations. When someone shows up late without apologizing, your instinct is to say it's fine, to make them comfortable, to smooth it over. But when you do that, you're training them, you're teaching them that your time has no cost. The next time, they'll be late again, and the time after that. Because you never made it uncomfortable, the move is to say nothing, to not reassure them, to let them feel the tension of having disrespected your time. That tension is the cost. That's what makes them think twice next time. People don't respect your boundaries because you explain them. They respect your boundaries because violating them feels bad. If there's no consequence, there's no boundary. And consequence doesn't mean punishment. It means withdrawal. It means distance. It means they lose access to your attention, your warmth, your availability. And that loss is what teaches them where the line is. You're in a relationship and your partner does something that bothers you. You bring it up. You explain how it made you feel. You ask them to change. They apologize. They promise to do better. 2 weeks later, they do it again. You bring it up again. Same conversation, same apology, same promise. And this cycle continues until you realize that your words don't mean anything, because you keep giving them the same access, the same attention, the same affection, regardless of whether they change. You're negotiating from a position of no leverage. Machiavelli understood that people respond to consequences, not conversations. If you explain what you need and nothing changes when they ignore it, then your explanation was just noise. They heard you. They just decided that keeping you doesn't require any change since you're still there. The shift happens when you stop explaining and start withdrawing. You don't announce it. You don't threaten. You don't give warnings. You quietly pull back. Less availability, less warmth, less investment. They notice, and because you didn't explain, they can't argue with it. They can't defend themselves. They can't promise to change again. They feel the distance. And that distance makes them reevaluate. It makes them wonder if they miscalculated. I suppose they took you for granted. If they're about to lose something they thought was secure, this isn't manipulation, it's recalibration. You're showing them through your actions what your words couldn't, that your presence isn't guaranteed, that access to you is earned, that consistency from you requires consistency from them. And once they feel that, once they understand that the cost of ignoring you is losing you, behavior changes, not because you asked, because you removed the option of keeping you while disrespecting you. Most people are terrified of withdrawal because they think it's not kind. They think it's playing games. But staying in a situation where you're not respected and pretending everything's fine, that's the real game. That's the absolute lie. Withdrawal is honesty. It's you aligning your actions with your standards. It's you refusing to participate in a dynamic that doesn't serve you. And if that creates discomfort for the other person, good. Discomfort is the signal that something needs to change. If you remove the discomfort by explaining, forgiving, and staying anyway, you remove the signal. And nothing changes. You keep cycling through the same patterns, wondering why your words don't work. Your words don't work because words without consequences are just sounds. You're building something, a business, a project, a skill. You're excited about it, so you talk about it. You share updates. You tell people your plans. You explain your strategy. And the more you talk, the less you do. Because talking releases the pressure. It gives you the feeling of progress without the reality. And worse, it invites opinions. Doubt. Skepticism. People who've done nothing start telling you why your thing won't work. And because you're still early, still uncertain, Their doubt gets in. Machiavelli knew that announcing your intentions is a form of weakness. It gives your enemies time to prepare. It gives doubters a chance to plant seeds. It makes your success dependent on external validation rather than internal execution. The people who win don't talk about what they're going to do. They disappear, they go quiet, and then they show up with the result. When you stop announcing and start executing in silence, two things happen. One, you remove the need for approval. You're no longer looking for affirmation or permission from people who don't have the authority to give it. You're just building. Two, you remove the social pressure to succeed in a way that satisfies others. You're no longer performing progress. You're just progressing. And when you finally show up with the finished product, with the result, with the proof, there's nothing to debate. You didn't ask if it was a good idea. You didn't ask if it would work. You just did it. And now it exists. And existence is the ultimate argument. People respect results. They don't respect potential. They don't respect potential. They respect the person who went away, did the work, and came back different. Stronger, more capable, undeniable. This is why silence is a weapon. Not because it hides weakness, but because it protects strength while it's still developing. When you're early in a process, you're vulnerable. Your idea is fragile. Your confidence is fragile. And every person you tell is a potential source of contamination. They don't mean to discourage you, but their limitations become yours if you let them in too early. Their fear becomes your fear. Their doubt becomes your doubt. Silence protects you from that. It keeps your vision clean. It keeps your energy focused. And when you emerge on your terms, not theirs. You're in a group and someone asks your opinion on something. You give it. Thoughtful, nuanced, complete. No one responds. The conversation moves on. 5 minutes late, someone else says almost the same thing you said. Everyone agrees. Everyone engages. You just learned something important. It's not what you say, it's who you are when you say it. Machiavelli understood that authority is perceived before it's earned. People listen to those they already see as powerful. If they don't see you that way, your words don't land. It doesn't matter how right you are. It doesn't matter how smart you sound. If you don't have a frame, you don't have influence. And the frame isn't built by talking. It's built by presence, by stillness, by outcome. The person who speaks the least and moves the most, that's the person people watch. That's the person whose words, when they finally come, hit different. This is why trying to prove yourself in conversation is a losing game. You're fighting for status in a domain where status has already been assigned. The moment you start explaining why your idea is good, you've already lost. Because the person with authority doesn't explain, they state, they propose, and people either align or they don't. But there's no defending, no justifying, no seeking approval. If you find yourself constantly explaining, constantly trying to get people to see your value, you're in the wrong room or you're playing the wrong game. The move is to stop trying to be heard and start building the outcomes that make people want to listen to you. To stop performing intelligence and start demonstrating capability. To stop talking about what you know and start showing what you can do. And when you do that, when you shift from words to results, people's perception of you changes. Not because you convinced them, because you became undeniable. Here's what happens when you stay predictable. People stop considering you. They know you'll say yes, so they don't prepare a genuine offer. They know you'll be available, so they don't prioritize your time. They know you'll stay, so they don't protect the relationship. You become a constant, and constants don't get attention. Variables do. The person who's sometimes available and sometimes not. The person who sometimes engages and sometimes withdraws. The person who's warm one day and distant the next. That's the person people think about. That's the person they try to figure out. That's the person they're careful with. You think inconsistency is a flaw, in relationships, in reputation, in character. But strategic inconsistency is how you maintain leverage. It's how you keep people in the dark. And uncertainty is what keeps them invested. When someone can predict your response, they've already moved past you mentally. They've already categorized you, already decided what you're worth, already determined how much effort you require. And once that calculation is done, you're managed and not respected. Managed. You're the person they text when they need something because they know you'll come through. You're the person they vent to because they know you'll listen. You're the person they cancel on because they know you'll understand. And every time you meet that expectation, you reinforce it. You train them to see you as the person who absorbs inconvenience without pushing back, the person who gives without requiring reciprocity, the person who's always there, which means never prioritized, the people who hold power in your life, the ones you think about, the ones you're careful not to upset. They're not the ones who are always available. They're the ones who might not be. The friend who's fantastic when you see them but doesn't always reply. The partner who's affectionate but doesn't need you. The boss who respects your work but doesn't validate you. These people live in your head because you can't fully predict them. You can't take them for granted. And that uncertainty makes you value every interaction. It makes you show up differently. It makes you work for their attention rather than assuming it. This is the game. The people who understand it stop trying to be consistent and start being selectively present. They stop trying to be reliable and start being valuable. And valuable means scarce. It means uncertain. It means you can't assume access. Machiavelli would tell you that being loved is less important than being feared. Not because fear is better, but because fear is more reliable. Love is conditional. It requires constant maintenance. It fades when you stop performing. Fear, respect, cautious regard, these don't fade. They persist because they're rooted in uncertainty, in the knowledge that this person might withdraw, might say no, might not tolerate what others tolerate. You don't need people to fear you, but you need them to know that your presence isn't guaranteed, that your patience isn't infinite, that access to you comes with terms, and if those terms aren't met, you disappear. Not with anger, not with drama, just with distance. And distance, when it's unexpected, is the loudest message you can send. So here's the challenge. For the next 2 weeks, practice withdrawal, not as punishment, as recalibration. When someone disrespects your time, don't explain why it's not okay. Just be less available next time. When someone takes you for granted, don't announce that you feel undervalued. Just invest less. When someone asks for something they didn't earn, don't justify why you're saying no. Just say no. Watch what happens. Watch how people start paying attention. Watch how the people who barely noticed you suddenly want to know where you went. Watch how your stock rises the moment you stop flooding the market. This isn't cruelty. This is clarity. This is you aligning your actions with your values. And when you do that, the people who belong in your life will adjust. They'll meet you where you are. And the people who don't, they'll fade. And that's not a loss, that's a filter. If you got something from this, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more of this. But don't do it to support me. Do it because you're marking a shift in how you see power. If this hit you, write, "I am the strategist" once in the comments, to mark the day your mindset changed. You're not the person who explains anymore. You're not the person who's always available. You're not the person who absorbs disrespect to keep the peace. You're the person who holds the frame, who controls access, who moves in silence and shows up with results. You're the strategist now. Act like it.